My wife's other child called me and said, I have questions only you can answer. The call came at 11:47 p.m. on a Tuesday, jolting me awake from the first decent sleep I'd had in weeks. Unknown number, but something made me answer instead of letting it go to voicemail. Is this David Ramirez? The voice was young, uncertain, but there was something familiar in the cadence that made my chest tighten. Yeah, this is David. Who's this? A long pause, then, it's Emma. Emma Walsh. Another pause. I think you used to be married to my mom. I sat up so fast my vision blurred. Emma. Jesus Christ. The last time I'd seen her, she was 7 years old, crying as I packed my boxes while Sarah screamed at me from the kitchen about being a deadbeat who was abandoning his family. That was 10 years ago. Emma, I managed, my voice cracking like I was 15 again. Holy shit. I mean, sorry, It's okay, she said quietly. I'm 17 now. I can handle swear words. 17. I did the math quickly. She'd been conceived during what I thought were the happiest months of my marriage. Sarah and I had been trying for a second child for 2 years, going through fertility treatments, the whole 9 yards. When she finally got pregnant, I cried in that doctor's office. Actually cried with joy. It took me another 3 years to find out Emma wasn't mine. 3 years of midnight feedings, first words, first steps, birthday parties where I was the proudest dad in the room. 3 years before Sarah's guilt finally cracked and she confessed about Marcus from her office. I have questions, Emma continued, and I think you're the only person who can answer them honestly. My mouth went dry. Where are you calling from? Does your mom know? She's at book club. She thinks I'm doing homework. Emma's voice got stronger, more determined. David, I need to know the truth about why you left. And I need to know about my biological father. The words hit me like a sledgehammer to the chest. Emma, sweetie, that's complicated. I know Marcus is my real dad. She said it matter-of-factly, like she was discussing the weather. I figured it out when I was 15. The timeline doesn't work with what Mom told me about when you guys started having problems. And I look just like his daughter from his first marriage. I found her on Instagram. I rubbed my eyes, trying to process this. How long have you known? 2 years. I've been trying to piece everything together, but Mom's story keeps changing. Sometimes she says you had gambling problems. Sometimes she says you cheated. Last month she told my therapist you were emotionally abusive. Emma's voice cracked slightly. But none of it makes sense with what I remember. You were good to me. Weren't you? My throat closed up. For 10 years, I'd wondered what Sarah had told them about me. Now I knew, and it was somehow worse than I'd imagined. I was good to you, I whispered. I loved you like you were my own blood. Then why did you disappear? Why didn't you fight for me? The question I've been asking myself every day for a decade. It's complicated, Em. There are things, legal things, adult things, that made it impossible. I'm 17, David. I graduate in 6 months. I need to understand what really happened before I turn 18 and leave for college. Her voice was pleading now. Can we meet? Somewhere she won't see us. I stared at the ceiling, knowing I was about to cross a line that would change everything. Yeah, I said. We can meet. We met at the Denny's off Route 9, the one that's always half empty and smells like burned coffee. I got there 20 minutes early and sat in a corner booth, nursing black coffee and watching the parking lot like I was conducting some kind of covert operation. Which, I suppose, I was. She walked in at exactly 3:15 p.m., just like we'd arranged. I recognized her immediately, even though she'd grown from a gangly 7-year-old into this tall, serious teenager with Sarah's dark hair and Marcus's green eyes. The resemblance to him was so obvious now that I wondered how I'd ever missed it. David? She slid into the booth across from me, shrugging off a worn denim jacket. You look older. 10 years will do that. I tried to smile. You look like your mom. Everyone says I look like Uncle Marcus. She said it deliberately, watching my face. Mom's brother Marcus. That's how she explains it when people comment. I nearly choked on my coffee. He's not her brother, Emma. I know that now. I found the HR records from Mom's old job at Pinnacle Insurance. She filed a complaint about workplace harassment in March 2007, then withdrew it 2 weeks later. Marcus Kellerman, Senior Claims Adjuster. Emma pulled out a manila folder and set it on the table between us. I've been doing research. The kid was thorough. Uncomfortably thorough. How did you get HR records? Mom kept everything in a box in the basement. I think she forgot about it. Emma opened the folder, revealing printed emails, photographs, and what looked like legal documents. I also found these. She slid a stack of papers across the table. Custody filing documents, dated 6 months after our divorce was finalized. My name was on them as petitioner, requesting visitation rights for Emma Ramirez Walsh. I remembered filling them out at my lawyer's kitchen table because I couldn't afford his office rates anymore. You tried to get custody of me, Emma said. It wasn't a question. Visitation, I corrected. Just weekends, maybe one night a week. I knew you weren't biologically mine by then, but I'd raised you for 7 years. You were my daughter in every way that mattered. What happened with the filing? This was the part I'd hoped to avoid. Your mom threatened to file charges against me for harassment and stalking. She said she'd tell everyone I was an unstable ex-husband who couldn't accept that his stepdaughter wasn't really his. I met Emma's eyes. She also said she'd make sure Jake never spoke to me again if I pursued it. Emma's face darkened. She used Jake as leverage. Your brother was 11 and already confused about why I'd left. Sarah made it clear that any attempt to maintain contact with you would result in me losing him completely. I pushed the papers back toward her. I chose to preserve the relationship with my biological son rather than risk losing both of you. But you lost Jake anyway. Emma's voice was flat. Yeah. 2 years later, she convinced him I'd abandoned the family for another woman. By the time he was 14, he wouldn't take my calls. I stared into my coffee mug. I haven't spoken to Jake in 6 years. Emma was quiet for a long moment, processing this. Finally, she looked up at me with tears in her eyes. She destroyed everything, didn't she? Your relationship with both of us, just to cover up her own affair. Emma. And Marcus? What happened to him? I sighed. He got promoted and transferred to the Denver office about a year after you were born. As far as I know, he's never acknowledged you exist. That's when Emma started to cry. I handed Emma a napkin and watched her shoulders shake as 10 years of lies crumbled around her. The fluorescent lights buzzed overhead, and somewhere behind us a trucker was arguing with the waitress about his eggs being overcooked. Normal Tuesday afternoon sounds while this kid's world fell apart. I'm sorry, she said after a few minutes, wiping her eyes. I thought I was prepared for this. You can't prepare for finding out your entire life story is bullshit, I said. Trust me on that one. She managed a weak smile, then pulled out her phone. There's something else. Something I haven't told you yet. She scrolled through her messages, then turned the screen toward me. I've been in contact with Marcus. My blood turned to ice. What? I found him on LinkedIn 3 months ago. Marcus Kellerman, Senior Vice President at Mountain States Insurance in Denver. Same guy from Mom's HR files. Emma's voice was steadier now, like she was drawing strength from having shocked me. I created a fake account and messaged him. The phone showed a conversation thread. I could see Marcus's profile picture, older now, graying at the temples, but definitely him. The bastard was wearing an expensive-looking suit and smiling like he didn't have a care in the world. Emma, Jesus Christ. What did you tell him? I said I was a journalism student writing an article about insurance industry practices in the mid-2000s, and that his name had come up in some research about Pinnacle Insurance. She scrolled down to show his response. He was actually pretty chatty once he thought I was just some college kid. Marcus's messages were lengthy, talking about his career trajectory, the challenges of the industry, how he'd learned so much during his time at Pinnacle. Standard corporate bullshit. Then Emma scrolled further down. I waited 2 weeks, then sent a follow-up asking if he remembered any unusual HR situations from that period. Workplace harassment claims, interpersonal conflicts, that sort of thing. His response made my stomach clench. There were always rumors and office gossip, but nothing that rose to the level of formal complaints as far as I knew. Why do you ask? So I pushed a little harder. Emma's finger moved down the screen. I told him I'd found records of a harassment complaint filed against him specifically by a Sarah Walsh in March 2007. The next message was shorter. I don't recall anything like that. Sarah and I had a cordial working relationship. Are you sure you have the right person? That's when I knew I had him, Emma said. Because I never mentioned Mom's name in the first message. He remembered her, but he was pretending he didn't. Smart kid. Scary smart. What did you do then? I told him I had copies of the original complaint and was trying to contact Sarah Walsh for comment. Asked if he had any way to reach her since they'd worked together. Emma's eyes were bright now, almost predatory. His response came back in 12 minutes. I would prefer not to be included in your article. Please remove my name from your research. And then yesterday, he sent me this. She scrolled to the bottom of the conversation. The message was just 2 lines. How much do you want? Name your price. I stared at the screen, my mind racing. He thinks you're trying to blackmail him. Exactly. Which means he knows exactly what happened between him and Mom. And he knows there's something worth paying to keep quiet. Emma locked her phone and leaned forward. David, I think my biological father has been sending Mom money all these years. The pieces started clicking together in my head. Sarah's house, the one she'd somehow managed to keep after our divorce despite not having a job that could cover the mortgage. Emma's private school tuition that Sarah had mentioned during one of our custody hearings. The new car Sarah had been driving the last time I'd seen her dropping Jake off at his friend's house 2 years ago. How much money are we talking about? I asked. I don't know yet. But I'm going to find out. Emma's jaw was set with the same determination Sarah used to have when she was planning something. I'm going to find out everything. Emma, listen to me very carefully, I said, reaching across the table to cover her hand with mine. You need to be extremely careful here. If Marcus has been paying your mom off for 17 years, we're talking about a lot of money. People do dangerous things when that kind of cash flow is threatened. She pulled her hand back, irritation flashing across her face. I'm not some stupid kid, David. I know what I'm doing. Do you? Because from where I'm sitting, it looks like you're poking a hornet's nest with a stick. I kept my voice low, but firm. What's your endgame here? What do you actually want to accomplish? Emma was quiet for a moment, staring out the window at the parking lot. When she looked back at me, there was something cold in her expression that reminded me uncomfortably of Sarah during our worst fights. I want Jake to know the truth, she said finally. I want him to know that you didn't abandon us. That Mom destroyed this family to cover up her own mistakes. Her voice got stronger, more certain. And I want Marcus to acknowledge that I exist. That I'm his daughter. And if he doesn't want that, if acknowledging you means destroying his marriage, his other kids, his career, then that's his choice to make. But he doesn't get to pretend I don't exist while secretly paying Mom hush money. Emma pulled out a small notebook and flipped it open. I've been tracking Mom's expenses for the past 6 months. Her teacher's salary is $52,000 a year, but she's spending like she makes twice that. She showed me a handwritten ledger with dates, amounts, and descriptions. The detail was staggering: mortgage payments, car payments, credit card bills, even grocery receipts. The house payment is $2,400 a month. Car payment is $650. She spent $800 at Nordstrom last month and $1,200 at some spa in Hartford. Emma's finger moved down the columns. There's no way she's covering all this on her salary, especially after taxes. Maybe she has savings. Investments. I checked. I have access to her laptop, and she never logs out of her banking. Emma turned the page. Her savings account has $847 in it. Her checking account runs close to zero every month, then suddenly gets a deposit that brings it back up. I studied the numbers, feeling sick to my stomach. How much are the deposits? That's the interesting part. They vary, but they're always between $3,500 and $4,200. And they come on the 15th of every month, like clockwork. Emma closed the notebook. I went back through 2 years of statements. It's been consistent the entire time. 40-something thousand a year in untraceable deposits. Marcus was essentially paying Emma's living expenses without her ever knowing about it. The scope of the deception was staggering. There's something else, Emma continued. Last week I overheard Mom on the phone with someone, talking about adjusting the arrangement because of college expenses. She said she'd need an additional $20,000 for my freshman year. Jesus Christ. So I created a new fake account and messaged Marcus again. This time I said I was a financial aid officer at Trinity College, and we needed to verify some scholarship information for an Emma Walsh. Emma's smile was sharp, predatory. I told him we needed confirmation that he was her biological father for our records. My chest tightened. Emma, what did you do? He called the number I gave him within an hour. Left a voicemail asking me to call him back immediately, said there had been some kind of mistake. She pulled out a small digital recorder. I saved it. Want to hear? I stared at the little digital recorder like it was a loaded gun. Emma, please tell me you didn't actually call him back. Of course I called him back. She pressed play, and Marcus's voice filled the space between us, tinny but unmistakably panicked. Listen, I don't know what kind of game this is, but Emma Walsh is not my daughter. I've never even met anyone by that name. If this is some kind of extortion attempt. Emma paused the recording. That was just the first minute. It gets better. She fast-forwarded, then pressed play again. Marcus's voice came back, lower now, more controlled. Look, I think we both know what this is really about. I can transfer $5,000 to whatever account you want by tomorrow morning. Just tell me this goes away. My hands were shaking. Emma, you realize what you've done, right? You've just committed fraud. Wire fraud, mail fraud. I didn't take his money, she interrupted. I never even gave him an account number. That's not the point. You impersonated a college official to get confirmation that my biological father knows exactly who I am, despite lying about it in our previous conversations. Emma's voice was ice cold. Which I got. She was right, but that didn't make this any less dangerous. What did you tell him when he offered the money? I told him Emma Walsh was being considered for a merit scholarship, and we needed biological parent information for our diversity outreach program. I said I'd follow up with additional paperwork. Emma tucked the recorder back into her jacket pocket. He's been waiting 3 days for that paperwork. Christ, Emma. You've got him thinking Trinity College is investigating him. Do you have any idea how paranoid that's going to make him? Good. Maybe paranoid people make mistakes. She pulled out her phone again. Speaking of mistakes, there's something else you need to see. The screen showed a Facebook profile for someone named Jennifer Kellerman, Marcus's wife, based on the photos. Typical suburban mom posts, kids' soccer games, family vacations, inspirational quotes about wine and yoga. Emma scrolled down to a post from 2 weeks ago. Look at this, she said, pointing to a photo of a family dinner. Marcus, Jennifer, and 2 kids who looked to be in their early 20s. The caption read, "So proud of our twins." Sarah starting her master's program at CU Denver, and Michael landing his dream job at the engineering firm. Hashtag proud mom, hashtag empty nest. He named his daughter Sarah, I said slowly. Same name as my mom. Same name as the woman he had an affair with. Emma's laugh was bitter. Either that's the world's most twisted coincidence, or Marcus has been thinking about Mom for the past 17 years. I studied the photo more carefully. The daughter, Sarah Kellerman, had the same dark hair and green eyes as Emma. Put them side by side, and anyone would assume they were sisters. There's more, Emma continued. I looked up property records for the Kellermans. They bought their house in Lakewood in 2009 for $750,000. Took out a second mortgage in 2015 for $100,000. Then last year, Marcus transferred the deed to a trust. That's not unusual for people with money. Maybe not. But the trust is administered by a law firm in Hartford, Connecticut. Same city where we live. Emma pulled up another screen. Brennan, Walsh and Associates. Want to guess who the senior partner is? My stomach dropped. Please tell me it's not Thomas Walsh. Mom's older brother. The one who handled your divorce. Emma's smile was triumphant and terrifying. Marcus has been funneling money to Mom through Uncle Tom's law firm for years. It's all connected, David. The whole family has been covering this up. The pieces were falling into place now, creating a picture so ugly I could barely process it. Sarah's brother Tom had been my own lawyer initially, until I'd fired him for being unresponsive and clearly biased. At the time, I'd chalked it up to family loyalty. Now I realized he'd been actively sabotaging my case while helping Sarah and Marcus hide their financial arrangement. That's why you lost custody, Emma said quietly. Uncle Tom made sure you couldn't fight for me, because a custody battle would have meant financial discovery. They would have had to explain where Mom's money was coming from. And that would have exposed Marcus. And probably cost him his marriage, his job, everything. Emma leaned back in the booth, looking older than her 17 years. They sacrificed your relationship with me and Jake to protect a man who was paying to pretend I don't exist. I felt like I was drowning in rage and grief and a dozen other emotions I couldn't name. 10 years. 10 fucking years of thinking I'd failed as a father, that I hadn't fought hard enough for my kids. And the whole time, the deck had been stacked against me by people I'd trusted. What are you going to do with all this? I asked finally. Emma's eyes were bright with determination. I'm going to burn it all down. The next morning, I called in sick to work for the first time in 3 years. I couldn't focus on anything except Emma's words echoing in my head, I'm going to burn it all down. The kid had no idea what she was unleashing. I was nursing my 3rd cup of coffee when my phone rang. Unknown number again, but this time I hesitated before answering. David? It's me again. Emma's voice was different, shakier, less confident than yesterday. Something happened. What kind of something? Mom came home early from work yesterday. She was acting really weird, asking me all these questions about what I'd been doing online, if I'd been talking to anyone about our family. Emma's breathing was rapid, panicked. I think she knows. My blood went cold. What exactly did she say? She wanted to see my laptop. Said she'd gotten a call from my school about some college application discrepancies, and she needed to check my email. Emma's voice dropped to almost a whisper. David, I had all my research files saved on there. Everything about Marcus, the bank records, the screenshots of his Facebook. Please tell me you didn't give it to her. I told her the laptop was at school, that I'd left it in my locker. But she didn't believe me. She tore my room apart looking for it. Emma's voice cracked. She found some of the printed documents I'd hidden under my mattress. The HR complaint, your custody filing papers. Shit. Emma, where are you right now? School. But I'm scared to go home. She was furious, David. I've never seen her like that. She kept screaming about how I was destroying the family and ruining everything she'd worked for. Emma took a shaky breath. She also said something about Uncle Tom having to clean up my mess and that there would be consequences if I'd contacted certain people. The threat was clear enough. Tom Walsh was going to use his legal connections to shut this down, and Emma was in way over her head. Listen to me very carefully, I said. Do not go home today. Do you have somewhere safe you can stay? A friend's house. My friend Ashley said I could crash at her place, but David, there's something else. Something worse. Emma's voice was barely audible now. This morning I got a text from an unknown number. It just said, stop digging or everyone gets hurt. This includes Jake. The mention of Jake hit me like a physical blow. You think it was from Marcus? I don't know. But whoever sent it knows I've been investigating, and they know about Jake. Emma was crying now. What if I put him in danger? What if they try to? They're not going to hurt Jake, I said, hoping I sounded more confident than I felt. This is about money and reputation, not violence. But Emma, you need to back off this. Delete everything, stop contacting Marcus, just let it go. I can't. Her voice was stronger suddenly, defiant. Don't you see? They're threatening Jake now, which means they're scared. Really scared. We're close to something big. We're not close to anything. You're a 17-year-old kid who's about to get crushed by people with serious money and connections. Then help me. The words came out in a rush. You want the truth to come out as much as I do. You want Jake to know you didn't abandon us. She was right, and that's what terrified me most. I did want the truth to come out. I wanted my son to know his father wasn't the villain in this story. There's one more thing, Emma said quietly. I may have already set something in motion that we can't stop. My stomach dropped. What did you do? I sent Jake a message. My phone nearly slipped from my hand. Emma, what exactly did you send Jake? I asked him to meet me. I told him I had information about why you really left. Her voice was small now, childlike. I didn't give him details, but I said it wasn't what Mom told us. When? Yesterday afternoon, right before Mom came home acting crazy. He hasn't responded yet, but David, Jake checks his messages obsessively. He's definitely seen it. I started pacing my kitchen, trying to think through the implications. If Sarah knew Emma was digging into the past, and if she'd seen any of those documents, she'd be in full damage control mode. The last thing she'd want was both kids comparing notes. Emma, I need you to listen very carefully. Call Jake right now and tell him you made a mistake. Tell him you were upset about something else and you didn't mean to drag him into it. But. No buts. If Sarah thinks you're trying to turn Jake against her, she's going to go nuclear. And if Tom Walsh gets involved. I trailed off, remembering how thoroughly he'd outmaneuvered me during the divorce. These people destroyed my life once. I won't let them do the same to you. It's too late. Emma's voice was flat. Jake just texted me back. He wants to meet tonight at Riverside Park, by the old baseball diamond. 7 o'clock. The irony wasn't lost on me. I taught both kids to hit baseballs at that diamond, back when we were still a family. Back when I thought Emma was mine and Jake would always be my little boy who asked me to pitch just 5 more every evening after dinner. Don't go, I said. Whatever you think you're going to accomplish, it's not worth the risk. He's my brother, David. Half-brother, technically, but still. He deserves to know the truth about what happened. Emma's determination was back, that steel in her voice that reminded me so much of Sarah before everything went wrong. And he deserves to know that you tried to stay in our lives. She was right, but that didn't make this any less dangerous. What if it's a trap? What if Sarah knows about the meeting? Then I guess we'll find out just how far she's willing to go to protect her lies. After Emma hung up, I sat in my kitchen staring at the wall for 20 minutes. Then I did something I hadn't done in 6 years. I tried calling Jake directly. Straight to voicemail. His recorded message was brief and impersonal. You've reached Jake Walsh. Leave a message. Not even Jake Ramirez Walsh like it used to be on his old phone. Sarah had erased me completely. I left a message anyway. Jake, it's David. Your dad. I know Emma contacted you, and I know you probably don't want to hear from me, but please don't meet with her tonight. There are things happening that you don't understand, and I'm worried about both of you getting caught in the middle. If you want answers about why I left, call me back. We can talk, just you and me. But please, stay away from Emma tonight. An hour later, my phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. Stay away from my children or you'll regret it. This is your only warning. S. Sarah. Somehow she'd gotten my new number, which meant she was monitoring Emma's phone. Which meant she probably knew about tonight's meeting at Riverside Park. I grabbed my keys and headed for the door. Whatever was about to happen, I wasn't going to let those kids face it alone. Riverside Park at 6:45 p.m. looked exactly like it had 10 years ago, same rusted backstop, same wooden bleachers with half the boards missing, same chain-link fence that rattled in the wind. I parked across the street behind a cluster of oak trees where I could see the diamond but stay hidden. My hands were shaking as I turned off the engine. Emma arrived first, walking her bike across the infield before leaning it against the dugout. She kept checking her phone, scanning the parking area nervously. Smart kid, she was watching for Sarah's car just like I was. Jake showed up at exactly 7 o'clock, and seeing him knocked the wind out of me. He was tall now, maybe 6'2", with my dark hair but Sarah's narrow build. He moved with the same careful deliberation I remembered, but there was something guarded in his posture that hadn't been there when he was 11. I watched through binoculars as Emma waved him over to the bleachers. Even from a distance, I could see the tension between them, Jake sitting stiffly while Emma gestured animatedly, pulling papers from her backpack. They talked for maybe 10 minutes before Jake shot to his feet, shaking his head violently. Emma grabbed his arm, trying to pull him back down, but he yanked away and started walking toward the parking lot. That's when the black SUV pulled up. Sarah climbed out of the passenger side, and my blood turned to ice when I saw who was driving, Thomas Walsh, her brother. The lawyer who'd helped destroy my custody case was here in person, which meant this was about to get very ugly very fast. Sarah marched across the infield like a woman on a mission, with Tom trailing behind her looking uncomfortable in his expensive suit. Jake stopped walking when he saw them, his shoulders sagging in defeat. Emma jumped up from the bleachers, clutching her backpack against her chest. I couldn't hear what Sarah was saying, but her body language said everything. She was pointing at Emma, then at Jake, her voice rising loud enough that I caught fragments, lies. And, manipulating you. And, just like your father. Emma was shaking her head, trying to show Jake one of her documents, but Sarah snatched it away and tore it in half. Then Tom stepped forward and said something that made Emma go very still. Jake looked confused, glancing between his mother and sister like he was trying to solve a puzzle with missing pieces. He said something to Sarah, and she responded by grabbing Emma's backpack and dumping its contents onto the ground. Papers scattered in the wind, photocopies, bank statements, printouts of Facebook messages. Tom was on his phone now, pacing near the SUV. Sarah was still yelling, but now she was pointing at the scattered papers, then at Emma, then toward the street where I was parked. My phone buzzed with a text from Emma, "Help us. She's calling the police. Says I stole confidential documents." I was out of my car before I'd fully processed the message. 10 years of staying away, 10 years of respecting Sarah's boundaries and court orders, and it all evaporated the moment I saw my kids in trouble. "Sarah." I called out as I jogged across the field. "Let's talk about this." She spun around, and the look on her face was pure hatred. "I told you to stay away from them." Jake's expression when he saw me was unreadable, surprise, confusion, maybe anger. Emma looked relieved. "Tom," I nodded at Sarah's brother. "Still cleaning up family messes, I see." Tom Walsh straightened his tie nervously. "David, you need to leave. Now. Before this becomes a legal matter." "I think it already is a legal matter," I said, picking up one of the scattered bank statements. "Especially once people start asking where Sarah's been getting an extra $40,000 a year." Sarah went white. Jake looked between us, finally starting to understand that something much bigger was happening here. "What 40,000? Jake asked quietly. And that's when Tom Walsh made the mistake that changed everything. "Shut up, David," he snapped. "Unless you want everyone to know about Denver." The words hung in the air like a gunshot. Tom's face went from pale to green as he realized what he'd just said. Sarah grabbed his arm, her fingernails digging into his expensive suit jacket. "Tom, shut up," she hissed, but it was too late. Jake stepped forward, his voice eerily calm. "What's in Denver?" I felt something shift in my chest, a door that had been locked for 10 years suddenly creaking open. Emma was staring at her uncle with the same predatory focus she'd had at Denny's, and I could practically see the gears turning in her head. "Nothing," Sarah said quickly. "Tom doesn't know what he's talking about. He's had a long day in." "Marcus Kellerman is in Denver," Emma said quietly. "Senior Vice President at Mountain States Insurance. Lives in Lakewood with his wife Jennifer and their twins." She looked directly at Jake. "One of whom is named Sarah." Jake's head snapped toward Emma, then to our mother, then to me. "Who the fuck is Marcus Kellerman?" "Language," Sarah said automatically, but her voice was shaking. Tom was back on his phone, walking in tight circles near the SUV. I caught fragments of his conversation, containment protocol. And, need the Denver contact activated. That's when I realized this was so much bigger than just Emma's investigation. Tom wasn't just Sarah's brother helping cover up an old affair, he was the middleman in an active conspiracy that had been running for 17 years. "Jake," I said carefully, "Marcus Kellerman is Emma's biological father. He's been sending money to your mom every month since Emma was born, channeled through Tom's law firm." "That's a lie," Sarah said, but she was backing toward the SUV now. "David, you're sick. You're delusional, and you're poisoning my children with these fantasies." Jake held up a hand for silence, his eyes never leaving my face. "How much money?" "Based on Emma's research, somewhere between $3,000 and $4,000 a month for at least the past 2 years. Probably longer." $48,000 a year, Jake said, doing the math instantly. He'd always been good with numbers, just like me. "Mom, is that why you could afford to keep the house after the divorce?" Sarah's composure finally cracked. "You don't understand the sacrifices I've made. The things I've had to do to keep this family together after your father abandoned us." "I didn't abandon anyone," I said, my voice rising. "I was frozen out by court orders and legal threats. Every time I tried to see you kids, Tom here would file harassment charges." Tom finished his phone call and stalked back over to us, his face grim. "This conversation is over. Sarah, get in the car. Kids, your mother is driving you home." "No," Emma said firmly. "I'm 17. I don't have to go anywhere with her." "Emma," Tom's voice was cold, professional. "You've committed several felonies in the past week. Wire fraud, identity theft, computer hacking. Unless you want to spend your 18th birthday in county jail, you'll get in that car right now. Jake stepped protectively in front of his sister. What felonies? What the hell is going on here? Emma pulled out her phone and opened her voice recorder app. Uncle Tom, for the record, are you threatening to have me arrested unless I stop investigating Marcus Kellerman's financial relationship with my mother? Tom lunged for the phone, but Emma was quicker. She tossed it to Jake, who caught it one-handed and immediately started backing away from the adults. Jake, give me that phone, Sarah demanded. No, he said simply. I want to hear what's on it. Sarah looked at me with pure desperation. David, please. You don't know what you're doing. There are people involved in this who won't hesitate to destroy all of us if this gets out. What people? I asked. That's when Tom's phone started ringing. He looked at the caller ID and his face went dead white. It's Denver, he said to Sarah. They know. Tom's phone kept ringing, each shrill note cutting through the evening air like an alarm. He stared at the screen, frozen, until Sarah snatched it from his hands. Marcus, she answered, her voice artificially bright. Hi, it's Sarah. Tom's just. She stopped mid-sentence, her face draining of color as she listened. The rest of us stood there like actors who'd forgotten their lines, watching her expression shift from fake cheerfulness to genuine terror. No, that's not, Marcus, listen to me. It's under control. Her eyes darted between Emma and Jake, then landed on me with pure hatred. There's been a misunderstanding, but we can fix this. Jake was still holding Emma's phone, and I could see him scrolling through something on the screen. His expression grew darker with each passing second. What the fuck, Mom, he said quietly, not looking up from the phone. There are recordings on here. Voice messages from some guy talking about wire transfers and keeping things quiet. Sarah covered the phone's mouthpiece. Jake, you don't understand the context. Then explain it, Emma said, stepping beside her brother. Explain why Marcus Kellerman has been paying you $4,000 a month for 17 years. Explain why Uncle Tom threatened to have me arrested for finding out about it. Tom was pacing again, running his hands through his thinning hair. This is a disaster. Sarah, get off the phone. We need damage control now. But Sarah was listening to whatever Marcus was saying on the other end, and her face kept getting paler. What do you mean the FBI? Marcus, there's no way they could, another long pause. A what? A federal task force. The words FBI and federal task force hit the group like a bomb. Tom stopped pacing and stared at Sarah in horror. What's he talking about? I demanded. Sarah hung up without saying goodbye to Marcus, her hands shaking as she looked at her brother. He says there's been a federal investigation into insurance fraud at his company. They're looking into off-books payments and suspicious financial transfers going back 20 years. Emma's eyes went wide. The money he's been sending you isn't his money, Tom finished grimly. Jesus Christ, Sarah. You told me it was his personal funds. You told me it was legitimate child support. It is legitimate child support. Sarah snapped. It doesn't matter where it comes from. I felt like the ground was shifting under my feet. Sarah, are you telling us that Marcus has been stealing money from his insurance company to pay you? Not stealing. He has discretionary authority over certain settlement funds. Sometimes there are surplus amounts that don't get fully distributed. Sarah's explanation sounded rehearsed, like she'd been telling herself this lie for years. It's perfectly legal. No, Tom said, his lawyer instincts finally kicking in. It's embezzlement. And if they can trace payments to you, that makes you an accessory. He turned to Emma and Jake. And if either of you has evidence of this arrangement, you're potential witnesses in a federal criminal case. Jake looked down at Emma's phone again, then back at his mother. Mom, how long have you known the money wasn't legitimate? The silence stretched out painfully before Sarah finally answered. I suspected something might be irregular about 3 years ago. Marcus started asking me to be more careful about how I deposited the checks. He wanted them broken up into smaller amounts, spread across different accounts. 3 years ago, Emma repeated. Right around the time Jake stopped taking Dad's phone calls. I saw the connection forming in Jake's mind, watched his expression shift from confusion to understanding to something approaching rage. You knew the money was stolen, so you made sure Dad couldn't get close enough to figure it out, Jake said slowly. You convinced me he was a deadbeat who didn't care about us, when really you were terrified he'd discover your sugar daddy was embezzling from his company. Sarah reached toward Jake, but he stepped back. Honey, you have to understand. I understand perfectly, Jake said, his voice ice cold. I understand that you destroyed our family to protect a criminal. Tom's phone started ringing again. Tom's phone buzzed insistently until he finally answered with shaking hands. Walsh here. His face went from pale to gray as he listened. When? How many agents? A long pause. No, don't say anything else over the phone. I'm coming to you. He hung up and turned to Sarah with barely controlled panic. They raided Marcus's office 2 hours ago. Seized everything, computers, files, financial records. His secretary told them about the monthly transfers to Connecticut before they even asked. Oh God, Sarah whispered, sinking onto the bleacher behind her. Mom, Emma said quietly, exactly how much money are we talking about? Total. Sarah looked up at her daughter with tears streaming down her face. I don't know. I never kept track of the full amount. I did. Tom's voice was mechanical, defeated. $837,000 over 17 years. Plus interest earned in the holding accounts. He looked directly at me. That's why we couldn't let you get custody, David. Financial discovery would have exposed everything in 2008. Jake made a sound like he'd been punched in the stomach. $800,000. It wasn't supposed to last this long, Sarah said desperately. Marcus said it would just be for a few years, until I got back on my feet. But then Emma needed things, school supplies, clothes, medical bills. And Jake wanted to play soccer, and the registration fees. Don't, Jake cut her off. Don't you dare blame this on us. Emma was staring at her phone, scrolling through something. Mom, I need to ask you something, and I need you to tell me the truth. She looked up with those green eyes that were so much like Marcus's. Did you know he was married when you slept with him? The question hung in the air like a blade. Sarah opened her mouth, closed it, then opened it again. Yes, she whispered finally. And did you know his wife was pregnant with twins at the time? Sarah's face crumpled. Emma, you have to understand. Did you know? Emma's voice was sharp, prosecutorial. Yes. Jake turned away from his mother like he couldn't stand to look at her. Jesus Christ, Mom. His wife was pregnant in you, he couldn't finish the sentence. It wasn't planned, Sarah said through her tears. It just happened. We were working late on a Henderson claim, and he was having problems at home, and I was lonely because your father was always traveling for work. I was traveling because we needed the money, I said, my own anger finally boiling over. I was working 60-hour weeks trying to pay for fertility treatments so we could give Jake a sibling. While she was fucking her coworker whose wife was pregnant, Emma added flatly. Tom's phone buzzed with a text. He read it and went even paler. Sarah, we need to leave. Now. The FBI contacted the Connecticut State Bar Association. They're opening an ethics investigation into my handling of your divorce case. What does that mean? Jake asked. It means Uncle Tom could be disbarred for helping hide stolen money during your parents' custody proceedings, Emma explained. Which means he definitely can't represent Mom anymore. Sarah stood up unsteadily, looking around at her scattered papers, her 2 children who were staring at her like strangers, and me. David, I know you hate me, but please, don't let them destroy the kids over this. Emma and Jake didn't do anything wrong. Before I could answer, Emma's phone started ringing. She looked at the caller ID and went very still. It's him. It's Marcus. Don't answer it, Tom said quickly. Why not? Emma asked, her finger hovering over the screen. Maybe it's time I actually talk to my biological father. Emma, no, Sarah lunged for the phone, but Emma was already swiping to accept the call. Hello, Marcus, she said clearly. This is Emma Walsh. I think we need to talk. The silence that followed Emma's words was deafening. Even the wind seemed to stop blowing across the baseball diamond as we all stared at her, phone pressed to her ear, waiting for Marcus Kellerman to respond to his daughter for the first time in 17 years. Emma. His voice was barely audible through the speaker, but in the quiet evening air, we could all hear the shock. Jesus Christ, Emma, where did you get this number? I'm resourceful, Emma said, her voice steady despite the tears streaming down her face. Just like you, apparently. Though I prefer researching people to stealing from insurance companies. Marcus was quiet for a long moment. When he spoke again, his voice was different, softer, almost broken. Are you okay? Are you safe? The question seemed to catch Emma off guard. Safe from what? From the FBI agents who are probably heading to your house right now. Marcus's voice was getting stronger, more urgent. Emma, listen to me very carefully. They seized all my financial records today. Every transfer I made to your mother's accounts, every payment Tom Walsh processed through his firm, they have all of it. Tom made a strangled noise and started walking in circles again. Sarah sat down hard on the bleacher, her face buried in her hands. How long do we have? Emma asked, and I was struck by how calm she sounded. Like she was discussing homework instead of federal criminal charges. Maybe 2 hours before they connect the dots between the payments and your family. Emma, I need you to understand something, your mother didn't know where the money was coming from. Not at first. But she knew later, Emma said. She admitted it. 3 years ago, you told her to be more careful with the deposits. Because I was trying to protect all of you. Marcus's voice cracked. The money was supposed to be temporary, just until Sarah got back on her feet. But then you started school, and there were medical bills, and Jake needed his real father, Emma interrupted, looking at me. The one who wanted to be in his life but got frozen out by lawyers and custody agreements designed to hide your crimes. Jake stepped closer to Emma, close enough to hear both sides of the conversation clearly. Is this really him? He asked quietly. Is this the guy who's been paying Mom all these years? Emma nodded, then spoke into the phone. Marcus, I'm here with Jake, my half-brother. And with David, the man who raised me for 7 years before Mom destroyed his life to protect you. Oh God, Marcus whispered. Jake. How old is he now? Old enough to understand that you stole nearly $1 million to avoid taking responsibility for the child you created during an affair with a married woman whose husband was working overtime to pay for fertility treatments, Jake said, his voice carrying clearly to the phone. The silence stretched out again. Then Marcus spoke, and his voice was different, defeated, empty. Jake, I know I can never make up for what I've done. To any of you. But right now, you need to focus on protecting yourselves. The FBI is going to want to know what you knew and when you knew it. What should we tell them? Emma asked. The truth, I said firmly, speaking loud enough for Marcus to hear. We tell them exactly what happened and when we found out about it. David's right, Marcus said through the phone. But Emma, there's something else. Something I need to tell you before they arrest me. What? Marcus took a shaky breath. I've thought about you every single day for 17 years. I've wanted to call you, to see you, to be your father. But I was a coward. I chose protecting my reputation over protecting you, and I'll regret that for the rest of my life. Emma closed her eyes, tears flowing freely now. Why now? Why are you telling me this now? Because in about an hour, I'm going to turn myself into the FBI field office in Denver. And I wanted you to hear it from me first. I love you, Emma. I've always loved you. And I'm sorry. The line went dead. Emma stared at her phone for a long moment after Marcus hung up, then slowly lowered it to her side. The silence stretched between all of us until Jake finally spoke. So that's it. He says he loves you and then disappears again. His voice was raw, angry. What a fucking coward. Tom was frantically typing on his phone, probably trying to reach his law partners. Sarah remained on the bleacher, looking like she'd aged 10 years in the past hour. And me? I felt like I was watching 17 years of lies finally collapse in real time. We need to call a lawyer, I said, the practical part of my brain finally kicking in. Not Tom, someone who isn't compromised by this mess. I already did, Emma said quietly, holding up her phone. While you guys were talking, I texted my journalism teacher, Ms. Rodriguez. Her husband is a federal defense attorney. Smart kid. Even in the middle of a family crisis, she was thinking 3 steps ahead. Emma, sweetheart, Sarah said, finally looking up from her hands. I need you to delete everything. All your research, the recordings, the screenshots, everything. Absolutely not, Emma replied firmly. That's evidence. Evidence that could send your mother to prison, Tom snapped, momentarily looking up from his phone. Sarah, my partners are recommending you disappear for a few days. Drive to your sister's place in Vermont, lay low until we can figure out. She's not running, Jake said, stepping protectively closer to Emma. None of us are running. Tom's phone started buzzing with what sounded like a dozen text messages in rapid succession. His face went from pale to green as he read them. They've frozen my firm's client trust accounts. All of them. What does that mean? I asked, though I was pretty sure I already knew. It means every client who has money held by our firm, real estate transactions, estate settlements, divorce agreements, all of it is locked down until the FBI can trace which funds came from Marcus. Tom loosened his tie like he couldn't breathe. We're looking at hundreds of clients affected, maybe thousands. How much of Dad's settlement money went through your accounts? Jake asked quietly. Tom wouldn't meet his eyes. All of it. The house sale, the retirement fund divisions, even your college savings account. The implications hit me like a freight train. You used my divorce as a cover to launder Marcus's stolen money. How much of what I lost was actually mine, and how much was you moving his payments around? Tom, Sarah warned, but he was past caring about keeping secrets. The house, David. Sarah was never supposed to keep the house. According to the actual divorce settlement, it should have been sold and the proceeds split 50-50. Tom's voice was mechanical now, like he was reading from a legal document. But Marcus needed a way to justify larger payments, so we restructured the agreement to let Sarah keep it in exchange for assuming the full mortgage. That's why my lawyer said the deal didn't make financial sense, I said, pieces clicking into place. Because it was never about the divorce, it was about creating a paper trail for embezzled money. Emma was recording again, holding her phone up to capture Tom's confession. Uncle Tom, for the record, are you saying that my father's divorce settlement was fraudulent? Stop recording. Tom lunged for her phone, but Jake blocked him. Let her record, Jake said coldly. I want everything documented. That's when we heard the sirens. 3 black SUVs with government plates turned into the park's parking lot, followed by 2 Connecticut State Police cruisers. Even from across the baseball diamond, I could see the FBI windbreakers as agents climbed out of their vehicles. They found us, Sarah whispered. Emma looked at her phone's screen, then at each of us. Ms. Rodriguez texted back. Her husband says to cooperate fully but don't volunteer anything beyond what they ask. And don't sign anything without a lawyer present. The agents were walking across the field now, moving with a purposeful stride of people who knew exactly what they were dealing with. The lead agent, a woman in her 40s with graying hair, held up a badge as she approached. I'm Special Agent Patricia Hernandez, FBI Financial Crimes Division. We need to speak with Sarah Walsh and Thomas Walsh immediately. Tom stepped forward, trying to summon what was left of his professional dignity. Agent Hernandez, I'm Thomas Walsh, attorney at law. Before my sister says anything, we'd like to arrange for separate legal representation. That's your right, Mr. Walsh. But first, I need to ask, is one of you Emma Walsh? Emma raised her hand like she was in school. That's me. Agent Hernandez studied her for a moment, then glanced at the scattered papers still blowing around the baseball diamond. Emma, we understand you've been in contact with Marcus Kellerman recently. We need to know everything about those conversations. She's a minor, Sarah said, finding her voice. She can't speak to you without a parent present. Actually, Agent Hernandez said with a slight smile, she's 17, which means she can choose to cooperate voluntarily. She looked directly at Emma. The question is whether she wants to help us understand how long this conspiracy has been running, or whether she wants to be treated as a potential accomplice. Emma looked at Jake, then at me, then back at Agent Hernandez. I want to help. But first, I have a question for you. What's that? When you arrest my biological father, will you tell him that I forgive him? Agent Hernandez's expression softened slightly at Emma's question, but her voice remained professional. That's something you can tell him yourself, Emma. Mr. Kellerman turned himself into our Denver office 20 minutes ago. He's requested to speak with you, but that would have to happen through official channels with attorneys present. Emma nodded, wiping her eyes. Then yes, I want to help you. I have recordings, bank records, documented communications, everything. Emma, don't, Sarah pleaded. You don't understand what you're doing to our family. Our family was destroyed 17 years ago, Jake said flatly. We're just finally dealing with the wreckage. Agent Hernandez gestured to the other agents, who began collecting the scattered papers from around the diamond. Mr. Walsh, we have a warrant for your arrest on charges of money laundering and conspiracy to commit wire fraud. You have the right to remain silent. Wait, Tom interrupted, pulling out his phone. I need to make a call first. My clients, there are pending real estate closings, estate distributions. Your clients are exactly why you're being arrested, sir. Agent Hernandez nodded to one of the other agents, who stepped forward with handcuffs. We've been monitoring suspicious financial patterns in your trust accounts for 8 months. The Kellerman payments were just the tip of the iceberg. My stomach dropped. 8 months. How long has this investigation been running? Since March, when Mountain States Insurance's internal audit flagged irregularities in Marcus Kellerman's settlement disbursements. Agent Hernandez looked at Emma with something approaching respect. Your daughter's amateur investigation actually accelerated our timeline. When Kellerman started panicking about fake college officials and journalism students, he made some very sloppy mistakes. Emma's face flushed. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to. Don't apologize. Your research was thorough and well documented. It's going to save us months of financial forensics. Agent Hernandez turned to Sarah. Mrs. Walsh, you're not under arrest at this time, but we strongly recommend you obtain legal counsel immediately. The U.S. Attorney's Office will likely want to discuss a cooperation agreement. What kind of cooperation? I asked. The kind where she helps us understand how many other insurance executives might be running similar schemes through Connecticut law firms. Agent Hernandez watched as Tom was led away in handcuffs, looking smaller and older than I'd ever seen him. This appears to be bigger than just Marcus Kellerman and your ex-wife, Mr. Ramirez. Sarah was crying again, but quietly now. I never meant for it to go this far. When Marcus first offered to help, I thought it was just temporary assistance. Child support that he couldn't pay officially because of his wife. When did you realize it was stolen money? Agent Hernandez asked. Sarah was quiet for a long moment. 2019, Tom mentioned that Marcus had been asking questions about cryptocurrency and offshore accounts. That's when I knew something was seriously wrong. She looked at me with desperate eyes. But by then, Emma was in private school, Jake was playing travel soccer, we'd refinanced the house twice using the payments as income verification. You were in too deep to stop, I finished. I was terrified that if the money stopped coming, we'd lose everything. The kids would have to change schools, we'd lose the house, everyone would find out. Sarah's voice broke. I thought I was protecting them. Jake made a sound of disgust. You were protecting yourself. You didn't want people to know you'd wrecked 2 marriages over an affair with a thief. Agent Hernandez was taking notes throughout this exchange. Mrs. Walsh, I need to ask directly, did you know Marcus Kellerman was embezzling money from his employer when you accepted those payments? Not initially. But yes, eventually I suspected. And when did you first suspect? Sarah closed her eyes. 2017, maybe 2018. So for approximately 5 years, you knowingly accepted what you believed to be stolen money? The weight of Sarah's silence was answer enough. Agent Hernandez closed her notepad and looked at each of us in turn. We'll need formal statements from everyone, but that can wait until tomorrow when you have legal representation. She handed Emma a business card. Emma, given the quality of your investigative work, you might want to consider a career in federal law enforcement. Emma managed a weak smile. I was thinking journalism, but thanks. As the FBI agents packed up their evidence and loaded Tom into one of the SUVs, Sarah sat alone on the bleacher looking utterly defeated. Jake and Emma stood together near the dugout, talking quietly. And me? I felt like I was watching the end of a very long, very painful chapter. David? Sarah's voice was small, childlike. I know you'll never forgive me for what I did to you. To us. But please don't let the kids pay for my mistakes. I looked at her, really looked at her, for the first time in years. She looked older, worn down by 17 years of maintaining lies and living with guilt. Part of me wanted to tell her exactly what I thought of her choices. But a bigger part of me was just tired. They're not kids anymore, Sarah. And they're stronger than you think. Agent Hernandez approached us one final time. Mr. Ramirez, we understand you were denied custody and visitation rights during your original divorce proceedings. Given what we now know about the fraudulent nature of those proceedings, you may want to consult with a family law attorney about your options. My options. After 10 years, I might actually have options. Jake walked over as the FBI vehicles were pulling out of the parking lot. David? Dad? He seemed to be testing the word, seeing how it felt. Could we maybe get dinner sometime? I have a lot of questions about what really happened back then. My throat closed up. I'd like that. I'd like that very much. Emma joined us, her backpack now empty of all the evidence she'd spent months collecting. I know this is weird, but would it be okay if I called you sometimes? I know you're not my biological father, but you're the only real dad I remember. I pulled both of them into a hug, something I'd dreamed about for 10 years. You can call me anytime. Both of you. Over their shoulders, I watched Sarah walking slowly toward her car, alone. Tomorrow she'd probably be arrested. Her brother was facing federal charges. The money that had sustained her lifestyle for nearly 2 decades was gone, frozen in federal accounts as evidence. But her children, our children, finally knew the truth. 3 months later, Jake started his senior year at a new school after Sarah lost the house. He was living with me in my small apartment, sleeping on a pull-out couch and complaining about my cooking, and I'd never been happier. Emma had been placed with Sarah's sister in Vermont while the legal proceedings continued, but she called every Sunday and visited every other weekend. Marcus Kellerman pled guilty to embezzling $2.3 million over 8 years and was sentenced to 6 years in federal prison. But before he was sentenced, he wrote Emma a letter, 12 pages of everything he'd wanted to say to her for 17 years. She carried it with her everywhere. Sarah accepted a plea deal and received 2 years probation in exchange for testimony against other insurance executives in Tom's network. She was working at a grocery store in Vermont and taking night classes to become a paralegal. We talked occasionally about the kids, conversations that were awkward but civil. Tom was disbarred and sentenced to 4 years in federal prison. His law firm's collapse affected hundreds of clients, but the FBI managed to recover most of the stolen funds. And me? I was learning how to be a father again, one day at a time. Learning that sometimes the best thing you can do for your children is simply tell them the truth, even when, especially when, that truth is complicated and painful and changes everything they thought they knew about their lives. Emma was right that night at Riverside Park. Sometimes you have to burn everything down to build something real.